My mother-in-law sabotaged my marriage for years. When she needed surgery, I was the only doctor available to save her. Everything started 8 years ago when I married the love of my life. We had this beautiful wedding planned for months, every detail carefully arranged. The flowers were ordered, the venue was booked, and I had found the perfect dress after trying on what felt like hundreds of options. But 3 days before our wedding, my mother-in-law decided to drop a bombshell that would set the tone for our entire relationship. She called me crying, claiming that her son had confessed to her that he was having second thoughts about marrying me. According to her, he had told her I was too controlling and that he felt trapped. My heart completely shattered. I confronted my husband-to-be and he was absolutely bewildered. He had never said anything like that to his mother, and he couldn't understand why she would make up such a horrible lie. We almost called off the wedding because of the chaos and hurt it caused, but we decided to go through with it anyway, thinking she was just having some kind of pre-wedding anxiety. That was my first mistake, giving her the benefit of the doubt. After we got married, the sabotage became more subtle but constant. She would call my husband during our date nights, claiming there was some emergency that required his immediate attention. When we planned romantic getaways, she would suddenly fall ill and need him to come take care of her. She lived only 20 minutes away, but somehow every minor inconvenience in her life became our responsibility to handle. The worst part was how she would undermine me in front of my husband. She would make comments about how I wasn't cooking traditional family recipes the way his grandmother used to make them. She would criticize my housekeeping skills, pointing out dust on shelves that I honestly couldn't even see. When we talked about having children, she would make passive-aggressive comments about how some women just aren't naturally maternal while looking directly at me. My husband, bless his heart, loved his mother and struggled to see what she was doing. He would defend her behavior, saying she was just trying to be helpful or that she meant well. When I would try to explain how her actions were affecting our marriage, he would accuse me of being too sensitive or not understanding her personality. This created a constant tension between us that she seemed to thrive on. The manipulation got worse over the years. She would invite my husband over for family dinners without including me, then act surprised when he showed up alone and ask where I was. She would give him gifts that were clearly meant to exclude me, like tickets to sports games for him and his father, or cooking classes that were specifically for him to learn his grandmother's recipes. Every gift came with the unspoken message that I didn't belong in their family circle. She also had this habit of bringing up his ex-girlfriend constantly. This woman he had dated in college, who apparently was everything I wasn't according to his mother. She would mention how that girl used to help with family events, how she knew all the family traditions, how she fit in so naturally with everyone. She would show my husband old photos from family gatherings where his ex was present, talking about what wonderful memories they all had together. During holidays, she would rearrange seating so that I ended up sitting far from my husband, usually next to someone I barely knew. She would plan activities that I wasn't skilled at, then make comments about how his ex-girlfriend was so good at those same things. She would ask me to help in the kitchen, then criticize everything I did while praising how other family members or family friends did things better. The financial manipulation was particularly cruel. She would offer to help us with expenses, then hold it over our heads later. When we were saving for our first house, she offered to contribute to the down payment. But then she would use that contribution as leverage, suggesting that since she was helping us financially, she should have input on which house we chose, how we decorated it, and even how often we invited her over. She would also create artificial emergencies that required financial help. Her car would break down right when we had planned a vacation and she would need to borrow money for repairs. Her roof would need fixing exactly when we were trying to save for something important. These emergencies always seemed to happen at the most inconvenient times, and she would act hurt if we couldn't immediately drop everything to help her. The emotional manipulation extended to our social life too. She would plan family events on the same days as important events for my side of the family. My sister's graduation, my father's birthday party, my cousin's wedding, somehow there was always a conflicting family obligation that my husband felt he couldn't miss. She would act like these conflicts were just unfortunate coincidences, but they happened too often to be accidental. She would also try to turn other family members against me. She would share private information about our marriage struggles with my husband's siblings, painting me as the source of all problems. She would tell them about arguments we had, but only her version of events, which always made me look unreasonable and difficult. When we would attend family gatherings, I could feel the tension and judgment from other relatives who had been influenced by her stories. My work life wasn't safe from her interference either. I had worked incredibly hard to build my career in medicine, spending years in medical school and residency, making enormous sacrifices to become a surgeon. But she would make comments about how demanding my job was and how it was affecting my ability to be a good wife. She would suggest that maybe I should consider a less demanding career so I could focus more on family life. When my husband got promoted at his job, she threw him a celebration party but didn't invite me, claiming it was meant to be a surprise and she didn't want me to accidentally spoil it. When I achieved a significant milestone in my career, she barely acknowledged it, instead focusing on how proud she was of her son for supporting me through such a stressful time. The breaking point came during our 5th year of marriage. We had been trying to start a family, and after months of trying, we discovered that we were facing some fertility challenges. It was an incredibly emotional and private struggle that we were dealing with together. Somehow, she found out about our situation and started making comments about how maybe it was for the best since my career was so demanding and I probably wouldn't have time to be a proper mother anyway. She also started suggesting that maybe her son should consider whether he wanted to be tied to someone who might not be able to give him children. She would mention other couples in the family who had beautiful children and how wonderful it was to be a grandmother. She would show him pictures of his cousin's kids and talk about all the family traditions that needed to be passed down to the next generation. That was when I finally realized that this woman was actively trying to destroy my marriage. It wasn't just difficult personality clashes or generational differences. She genuinely wanted me out of her son's life and was willing to use our most vulnerable moments against us. I started documenting everything. Every phone call that interrupted our time together, every comment that undermined me, every manipulation tactic she used. I began taking screenshots of text messages and keeping a journal of incidents. I wasn't sure what I was going to do with this information, but I knew I needed proof of what was happening. My husband and I started having serious conversations about our relationship and his mother's role in our problems. It took months of difficult discussions, but he finally started to see the patterns I had been pointing out. He began setting boundaries with her, which made her increase her efforts to drive us apart. She started having more frequent emergencies that required his attention. She would call him at work with crises that somehow resolved themselves by the time he could get to her house. She would show up at our home unannounced, claiming she was worried about us because we seemed distant lately. She would corner me when my husband wasn't around and make comments about how I was changing him and making him unhappy. Update 1. Things escalated dramatically 6 months ago when she decided to take her sabotage to a whole new level. She had been planning what she called a family intervention about our marriage problems. Without telling us, she had been calling various family members and family friends, telling them that she was worried about her son's happiness and that she thought our marriage was in serious trouble. She organized a family gathering under the pretense of celebrating her birthday, but when we arrived, it became clear that this was actually an ambush. She had invited my husband's siblings, his father, several aunts and uncles, and even some family friends. The conversation quickly turned to concerns about our relationship, with multiple people expressing worry about my husband's well-being and happiness. What made this particularly devastating was that she had shared private information about our fertility struggles with everyone present. She told them that the stress of trying to have children was destroying our marriage and that I was becoming increasingly difficult to live with. She claimed that my career was more important to me than family and that I was preventing her son from having the children and family life he deserved. The most painful part was watching my husband realize what his mother had done. He saw the shock and hurt on my face as these private details of our life were discussed by people who had no business knowing about them. He saw how she had manipulated the situation to make me look like the villain in our story and how she had turned what should have been our support system into a weapon against our marriage. We left that gathering immediately and my husband was finally ready to confront his mother about her behavior. But she had prepared for this possibility too. When he called her the next day to discuss what had happened, she broke down crying and claimed that she was only trying to help because she could see how unhappy he was. She said that she loved me like a daughter and that she was just worried about both of us. She then dropped another bombshell. She claimed that she had been diagnosed with a serious heart condition and that the stress of seeing our marriage fall apart was making her condition worse. She said her doctor had told her that she needed to avoid stress and emotional turmoil, but that she couldn't stop worrying about her son's happiness. She made him promise not to tell anyone about her condition because she didn't want to burden the family with her health problems. My husband was torn between supporting me and taking care of his supposedly sick mother. I could see him struggling with guilt and confusion, exactly what she had intended. But I had reached my limit with her manipulation, and I told my husband that I needed some time to think about our relationship and whether I could continue living this way. I moved in with my sister for 2 weeks, which gave me space to clear my head and gave my husband time to really think about everything that had been happening. During that time, his mother ramped up her efforts, calling him multiple times a day to check on him and offering to cook his meals and do his laundry since I wasn't there to take care of him. But something unexpected happened during those 2 weeks. My husband started keeping track of his mother's calls and visits, and he began to see the patterns I had been pointing out for years. He realized that her health crises always seemed to happen when we were trying to work through our problems or when we had made progress in our relationship. He started questioning whether her heart condition was even real. When I came back home, we had the most honest conversation we had ever had about his mother and our marriage. He admitted that he had been in denial about her behavior because it was easier than confronting the reality that his mother was actively trying to harm our relationship. He apologized for not believing me sooner and for allowing her manipulation to damage our trust in each other. We decided to go to couples counseling, but we agreed that we would keep this decision private and not tell his mother about it. We both suspected that if she knew we were working on our marriage, she would find new ways to interfere. We were right to be suspicious because during this time, she started showing up at our house more frequently, always with some excuse about needing help or wanting to spend time with her son. The counseling sessions were incredibly helpful in giving us tools to communicate better and to recognize manipulation tactics. Our counselor helped my husband understand how his mother's behavior fit classic patterns of emotional manipulation and boundary violations. For the first time in our marriage, I felt like we were truly working as a team against outside interference. But his mother seemed to sense that she was losing control of the situation. Her behavior became more erratic and desperate. She started calling my workplace, claiming to be concerned about family emergencies and needing to reach me urgently. When my colleagues would tell her I was in surgery or with patients, she would become dramatic and insist that it was a life-or-death situation. She also started spreading rumors in their community about our marriage problems. She would tell neighbors and family friends that she was worried about her son, implying that I was mistreating him or that our relationship was abusive. She would ask for prayers for our family during difficult times, which made it sound like we were going through some kind of crisis. The most manipulative thing she did during this period was to start talking about her will and inheritance. She would mention how she was updating her legal documents and how important it was to make sure her son was taken care of if something happened to her. She would make comments about how certain family heirlooms and possessions should stay within the bloodline and how she wanted to make sure they went to people who truly understood their value. These comments were clearly meant to make me feel like an outsider and to remind my husband that his financial future was tied to maintaining a good relationship with his mother. She would talk about property she owned and investments she had made, always in the context of wanting to pass them on to family members who deserved them. Update 2. The situation reached a crisis point 3 months ago when my husband finally decided to confront his mother directly about her behavior. He had prepared a list of specific incidents and examples of how she had interfered in our marriage. He was ready to set clear boundaries and demand that she respect our relationship and our privacy. But when he went to her house for this conversation, he found her collapsed on her kitchen floor. She was conscious but weak, and she told him that she had been having chest pains and difficulty breathing for several hours. He immediately called an ambulance and she was rushed to the hospital where I work. The timing was incredibly suspicious to me, but I couldn't ignore the fact that she was genuinely having a medical emergency. The initial tests showed that she was having a heart attack, which seemed to confirm her previous claims about having a heart condition. My husband was devastated, feeling guilty that he had been planning to confront her just when she was having a serious health crisis. I found myself in the uncomfortable position of being involved in her medical care. While I wasn't her primary doctor, I was consulted on her case because of my surgical expertise. The tests revealed that she had significant blockages in her coronary arteries that required immediate surgical intervention. What made this situation even more complicated was that the cardiac surgery department was understaffed that week due to several doctors being out sick or at a conference. The attending surgeon who would normally handle this type of case was dealing with his own family emergency and wasn't available. The other qualified surgeon was already in the middle of a complex procedure that was expected to last many hours. This meant that I was the most qualified and available surgeon to perform her life-saving surgery. The irony wasn't lost on me. This woman who had spent years trying to destroy my marriage was now dependent on my skills and expertise to save her life. My husband was panicked about his mother's condition and desperate for someone to help her, not fully grasping the emotional complexity of the situation for me. I struggled with conflicting emotions. Part of me felt vindicated that she needed me after years of trying to prove that I wasn't good enough for her family. But a larger part of me felt the weight of my professional obligations and the genuineness of my husband's fear and concern for his mother. I agreed to perform the surgery knowing that this decision would change our relationship dynamics forever. During the preoperative preparations, she was awake and aware of who would be performing her surgery. For the first time in our relationship, I saw genuine fear in her eyes, and I realized that she understood the position she had put herself in. The surgery was complex and took several hours. During that time, my husband waited in the family area, surrounded by relatives who had gathered to support him. Many of these were the same people who had been present at that awful family intervention she had orchestrated months earlier. Now they were all hoping and praying that I would be able to save her life. The surgery was successful, but her recovery would be lengthy and she would need significant care and support. As I spoke with my husband and the family about her prognosis and care needs, I could see a shift in how they viewed me. Suddenly, I wasn't the problematic daughter-in-law who was making their family member unhappy. I was the skilled professional who had just saved their loved one's life. During her recovery in the hospital, she was vulnerable and dependent in a way I had never seen before. She couldn't manipulate situations or create drama because she was focused on healing and getting stronger. For the first time, we had conversations that weren't loaded with hidden agendas or passive-aggressive comments. She thanked me for saving her life, and while I could tell it was difficult for her to be grateful to someone she had tried so hard to push out of the family, her gratitude seemed genuine. She also apologized for some of her past behavior, though she framed it as misunderstandings and good intentions gone wrong rather than taking full responsibility for her manipulation. My husband was deeply affected by seeing his mother so vulnerable and by witnessing me put aside our personal conflicts to provide her with the best possible medical care. He finally understood the depth of my professionalism and commitment, not just to my career but to doing the right thing even in difficult circumstances. But the most unexpected development came when we discovered something during her medical workup that changed everything we thought we knew about her recent behavior. The cardiac catheterization revealed not just coronary artery disease, but also evidence of a previously undiagnosed condition that can cause personality changes, mood swings, and erratic behavior. The cardiologist explained that reduced blood flow to certain parts of the brain, which had likely been happening gradually over the past few years, could have contributed to increased anxiety, paranoia, and difficulty with emotional regulation. While this didn't excuse all of her behavior over the years, it did provide some context for why her manipulation and interference had seemed to escalate recently. This revelation forced all of us to reconsider our understanding of the situation. My husband wondered if his mother's increasing desperation to control our relationship had been influenced by this medical condition. I found myself questioning whether some of her more recent erratic behavior had been driven by illness rather than pure malice. However, I also recognized that her pattern of interference and manipulation had been consistent long before any medical condition could have been a factor. The foundation of her behavior toward me had been established from the very beginning of our relationship, and while her recent escalation might have been influenced by her health, her core attitude and actions had deeper roots. Final update. The months following her surgery have been a period of unexpected transformation for our entire family dynamic. Her recovery has been slower than initially expected, requiring several weeks of rehabilitation and ongoing medical management. During this time, she has been forced to depend on others in ways that have fundamentally changed how she interacts with people. My husband stepped up to coordinate her care, but he also insisted that I be involved in medical decisions since I understood her condition better than anyone else in the family. This meant that for the first time in our relationship, she had to acknowledge my expertise and value rather than trying to diminish or dismiss it. The other family members who had been present at that disastrous intervention gathering have also had their perspectives shifted. They witnessed firsthand how I put aside personal conflicts to provide excellent medical care for someone who had treated me poorly. Several of them have privately apologized to me for their participation in that family meeting, acknowledging that they had been given incomplete information about our relationship problems. My husband's siblings have been particularly affected by these revelations. They had always seen their mother as the family peacekeeper and had accepted her version of events when she complained about me. Now they're questioning other family dynamics and wondering what else they might have misunderstood over the years. During one of her follow-up appointments, she asked to speak with me privately. She admitted that she had been threatened by my independence and success and that she had feared losing her son's attention and affection. She acknowledged that her behavior had been manipulative and harmful, though she still struggled to take full responsibility for the damage she had caused to our marriage. She also revealed something that shocked me completely. She told me that she had lied about her heart condition months earlier when my husband was planning to confront her. She had been experiencing some minor symptoms that she had exaggerated dramatically to avoid the difficult conversation about her behavior. The irony was that while she had faked a heart condition to manipulate the situation, she had actually been developing real heart disease that could have killed her. This admission was both validating and frustrating. It confirmed that my instincts about her manipulation had been correct, but it also highlighted how her lies and deception had become so elaborate that even she had lost track of what was real and what was fabricated. My husband was devastated when she told us this. He realized that his guilt about confronting a sick mother had been based on a lie, and he felt manipulated and betrayed. For the first time, he truly understood the extent of his mother's willingness to deceive people to get what she wanted. But perhaps the most significant change has been in my husband's approach to our relationship. He has become fiercely protective of our marriage and our privacy. He now recognizes manipulation tactics immediately and shuts them down before they can affect us. He has established clear boundaries with his mother about what information she is and isn't entitled to know about our lives. He also made a commitment to rebuild the trust that had been damaged by years of divided loyalty. He acknowledged that his failure to support me against his mother's interference had hurt our relationship in ways that would take time to heal. He has been consistently choosing our marriage over his mother's demands and expectations, something that should have happened years ago but is happening now. Our couples counseling sessions have evolved from crisis management to building a stronger foundation for our future. We've developed better communication skills and learned to present a united front against outside interference. We've also worked on healing the wounds created by years of manipulation and divided loyalties. As for his mother, her recovery has been complicated by the need to adjust not just her physical health but also her entire approach to family relationships. She can no longer rely on manipulation and crisis creation to get attention and control situations. She has had to learn new ways of connecting with her son that don't involve trying to damage his marriage. The process hasn't been smooth and there have been setbacks. Old habits are hard to break, and sometimes she still tries to create drama or division. But now my husband recognizes these attempts immediately and refuses to participate in them. He tells her directly that he won't discuss our private matters with her and that his loyalty is to his wife and his marriage. We've also made changes to protect our relationship going forward. We no longer share detailed information about our personal lives, our finances, or our future plans with her. We've moved further away, creating physical distance that makes it harder for her to insert herself into our daily lives. We've also limited the frequency of visits and phone calls, establishing boundaries that prioritize our relationship. The experience has taught me things about myself that I didn't expect to learn. I discovered that I could separate my personal feelings from my professional obligations in ways I hadn't been tested on before. I also learned that sometimes the most powerful response to manipulation is simply refusing to participate in the drama while still maintaining your own integrity and values. I've also gained a deeper understanding of how family dynamics can shape people's behavior in ways they don't even recognize. My husband's difficulty in seeing his mother's manipulation wasn't necessarily a character flaw, it was the result of a lifetime of being conditioned to accept her behavior as normal and well-intentioned. The medical complications that may have contributed to her recent behavior have also reminded me that people are complex and that sometimes there are multiple factors influencing someone's actions. While this doesn't excuse harmful behavior, it does provide a more complete picture of what might have been happening. Our marriage is stronger now than it has ever been, but it's also different. We've been through a trial by fire that has forced us to examine every aspect of our relationship and our individual priorities. We've had to rebuild trust, establish new boundaries, and learn to function as a truly united team. We're also finally ready to start trying for a family again, but this time we're doing it with clear boundaries about who will be involved in our parenting decisions and how we'll protect our children from manipulation and emotional interference. We've learned that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is limit someone's access to the people and situations they can't handle appropriately. The woman who spent years trying to destroy my marriage now owes her life to my surgical skills and professional dedication. The man who once struggled to choose between his wife and his mother now protects our relationship fiercely. The family members who once questioned my place in their family now see me as someone who puts principles and compassion above personal grudges. It's been a long, painful journey to get to this point, but I finally feel like we have the marriage we should have had all along. We're partners in the truest sense, facing challenges together rather than being pulled apart by outside forces. And while the road ahead may still have obstacles, I'm confident that we now have the tools and commitment to handle whatever comes our way. Sometimes the most unexpected circumstances can provide the clarity and resolution that years of conventional approaches couldn't achieve. I never imagined that saving my mother-in-law's life would be the key to saving my marriage, but that's exactly what happened. Life has a strange way of bringing justice and healing through the most unlikely paths.